Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh episode of Gabriel Talks Football GTF. My name is Aldo Gandia. We're going to talk about Mr. Kevin Warren, the new Bears CEO and president. But before that, I want to let you know that tonight at 8 p.m. Central, it is Bare Their Souls with our new cast of Chicago Bears diehard fans. We're going to talk about a number of things, including the topic of should the Bears at least entertain trading Justin Fields, entertain any offers that might come in? And I want to get Greg's take on this. He's probably going to reach across the screen and slap me if he could get the hand through the screen. I see him doing that already. So let's bring him in now, the feisty as ever, Greg Gabriel. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing real good. I'll tell you what, there's not a quarterback in this draft coming up that's anywhere close to being as good as Justin Fields. End of discussion.
That's it. Final. But okay.
Really, it's if you were putting Justin in this draft, he'd be the number one pick, hands down.
Okay. So, but what if you get 3 number 1 picks and then you now have 4 first-round draft picks? Or 5.
Who's going to give you? I mean, you trade them and you get 3 number 1s.
Yeah,
well, you're not gonna have them this year, and then you're putting yourself into a situation where you're starting all over again. You got to go through the same thing with the rookie growing pains. Why do you want to do that? You just got done with it.
Yeah, but and you're absolutely right. Those are all good reasons. But if the team got together, the coaching staff got together and said, you know what, we still have doubts about whether he can be an above average passer of the football, because he has shown the lack of fast processing, and his accuracy on short passes particularly is not where it should be. So if your coaching staff said, we still have some doubts, we're not totally sure about him, should you at least entertain the phone calls you might get for Justin Fields?
Oh, well, theoretically, if you thought, you know, one of the top 3 quarterbacks in this draft was better than Fields, then yeah. And again, I'm stressing theoretically, so I don't want to see Gabriel said. You know, because I didn't say, because but you know, you got to look at how he's grown. Let's back up a little bit. Mm-hmm. This is the 3rd offense he's been in 3 years. Ohio State, 2020. Nagy's offense, 2021, and Getsy's offense, 2022. Okay, that's difficult for anybody. You go, you know, they're all different. And I think it's fair to say that the second half of the season, he was a lot quicker pulling the trigger than he was the first half of the season. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the numbers bear that out. The completion percentage, everything across the board, you know, bears that out. And it's not only him, it's being on board with the receivers. So the receivers knowing him. And some of these guys, you know, people want to bitch about the Claypool trade. They can bitch all they want. You know, I've said it 1,000 times. The fruits of the Claypool trade will be shown next year. This offense is very difficult to learn. It takes, and mainly because of the adjustments that got to be made by receivers, the site adjustments. So, you know, I think he's going to have an entire offseason, and he's going to be a lot different player for the Bears than we saw this year. But when they make a trade and you give up a number 2, you're not doing it for, you know, the half season that they had, and they're doing it for an extended period.
Mm-hmm. You make a compelling argument, and as Adepta says, that's it. Thanks, Greg. That's that. So we'll move on to the news of the day, which is the introduction of Kevin Warren as the Bears' new CEO and president. Why are you smiling?
Because I felt bad for the guy. Well, he probably didn't even know he was talking, but none of us, we saw what? A quarter of what was said?
About that, yes. It was a really sad moment. The Bears lost their internet access, and so anyone who was watching this live streaming of it, of the announcement and of Mr. Warren's comments, missed out on at least half and maybe even a lot more. We were able to grab some comments, and this is among Kevin Warren's first statements when he was introduced.
I'm looking forward to building an incredible culture here with the Chicago Bears, to meet with every employee one-on-one, to ask them some simple questions. If you were a member of the McCaskey family, what would you do to bring a championship? What can we do to help you on a daily basis? Tell me one thing that we can change to make this an incredible place. So this is a special day as we move forward in a journey. I'll always be transparent with you. I'll be honest and straightforward, and I'm looking forward to making this home for a very long time and bringing championships home to Chicago.
Greg, this guy impresses me immensely. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, he's a people person, but you look at the positions he's held, the last being commissioner of the Big Ten, which is no small job. And you've got to be in a job like that, commissioner of a huge conference like the Big Ten. There's a lot of politics involved. So you got to know how to play the politics. You got to be able to work with people. He's worked in the NFL for a number of years. He helped build that gorgeous stadium in Minneapolis. So there's a lot of good things going. There's a couple things, and starting with George's statement. And one thing, you kind of forget about over the years, he said like the head coach reports to the general manager and the general manager reports to him and not Ted, going forward, because Ted was going to be involved in the building of the stadium, at least the foundation of that, putting the deal together. And then it just hit me right away. Oh yeah. So that means he's the guy who had to sign off on Khalil Mack getting traded, Roquan Smith getting traded, which all goes back to what is Ryan Pohl's vision. And that goes back to a year ago when they hired him. He had a vision. And that brings up another point, because I had, a text conversation with Ballard last week. And I said, when you're interviewing people, what are some of the important things you're looking for? And he said, he didn't put them in order, but obviously leadership qualities and finding that out about, what other people think of the person as a leader. But their vision, he said, real important, their vision and who they're going to put together as far as a coaching staff, because the coaching staff is very, very important. And it hit me, the vision. Mm-hmm. And this taking down of the team, and I know we're off the Kevin Warren thing here for a second, but the taking down or dismantling of this team from what we saw last year to what it is now, and that has a lot to do with why there's only 3 wins at the end of the season, was part of the vision that Ryan Poles had for the Chicago Bears going forward, that in order to take a step forward, you had to take a step back. And he did that, and he had, didn't give a shit one way or the other, to put it mildly, what other people thought. He was going to do it the way he wanted to do it. But like I said, the statement, George had a write-off on all of that. Okay, so now going forward, really, it sounds like Kevin, from his statement, he's not going to be really taking over until April. But so I think when it comes to free agency, Ted's still there. But let's talk about, what does I've been in that building. I know how it works. He's going to let them do whatever the hell they want. He just wants to know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So he's getting, it's, I never had any difficulty with, let's say, because I had to control my own budget. And if I was going to exceed the budget, and know why? Because there was something I needed that wasn't in the pre-planned budget that we do, the year before, I'd say, hey, this is, piece of technology or something that came up. This is going to help us. And I had to sell it to him. And then it was either yay or nay. And I'm going to say 98.5% of the time it was go ahead and do it. So all he wanted to know is what the plan was. And he almost always signed off on it. So I don't think Ryan's going to have a problem. People are going to say, oh, okay, because when free agency starts in 2 months, Ted's still technically going to be at the helm. Even though Kevin will be there, but not be there because he said his official start date isn't until April, and they didn't give the exact date. And he's still probably, unless they find his successor for the Big Ten commissioner, if they find somebody fairly quickly, maybe they can move up that start date. But, right now it's April. So, free agency in the draft, most of that's going to be the guy who sets the approval. And he doesn't say, no, don't draft this guy, because I've been in the rooms for that. He lets you do what you want. He just wants to know the figures. Okay, what's it going to cost for this guy, etc.
The buck stops with George McCaskey, so he's more than entitled to know what exactly is going on with all of the operations with the Chicago Bears. McCaskey was asked about Kevin's qualities, and this was his response.
His energy, his experience, the trust level, what he did as Big Ten commissioner, what he did with 3 other NFL teams. His connection, as he mentioned, to the Bears from 30 years ago with Chris.
This is important that those qualities that he mentioned are also qualities that an NFL commissioner should have. And a lot of people have said that this is probably a stepping stone for Kevin Warren, because he has his eye on being the commissioner of the National Football League after being commissioner of the Big Ten for 3 seasons. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, not really. It's love the paycheck of the commissioner. That's for damn sure.
Right.
Like $1 million a week. And,
really? My goodness.
But that's thinking way ahead. I mean, it's not like he's going to be a pauper being president and CEO of the Chicago Bears.
Yes.
He's a very well-spoken man.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously a people person. Everybody who's ever been associated with him speaks very, very highly of him. So I think, he's going to bring a different personality. I think he's a totally different personality than Ted. And I don't know Kevin Warren, but just from seeing him as Big Ten commissioner, because I remember going back a couple of years ago during the COVID thing, and it was actually Justin Fields who was really putting the pressure on. He got the players. He banded the players together to no, we're not sitting out the season. We're playing.
Mm-hmm.
And that tells you a little bit about Justin Fields too. He took a huge leadership role in doing that. And, I think, given the politics involved in higher education during the pandemic, it took some balls to do that. And he made the decision. And I don't remember if the Big Ten was one of the first to say we're doing it, but I know the Pac-12 was the last.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But so he's been involved in that. But he said, he came right out and say it. First and foremost, it's build that stadium.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get to that, but I want to squeeze in this question first from Renewable. He asked, how much do personal relationships play out when making trades? Does that make it for easier deals or sometimes harder to get over? And while, of course, Kevin Warren is not going to be probably directly involved with any trades.
Well, he really won't be involved at all.
But perhaps his relationship with other teams and other people could serve as an entree, could serve as useful intel for Ryan Post. He does, this guy likes this, doesn't like that. Could it help in any way?
Yeah, in all honesty, I don't think so. I mean, the last team he was with was with Minnesota. Was with the Rams. But how many, you know how things change in
Absolutely.
the NFL and people in the front office, who's still there? Since he left the Rams, they got to, they've changed or not the Rams. Since he left the Vikings, they've changed their coaching staff and their front office. It's entirely different. So it's not like, his connection is with ownership, not with the front office football people.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Okay, let's get to the topic of First Bank. He was asked what's the biggest thing that he learned in the construction of First Bank. For those fans who do not know, Kevin Warren had a huge role in the construction of the First Bank Stadium. The stadium.
Isn't it U.S. Bank?
U.S. First Bank. Yes, you're absolutely right. Thank you for the correction. So this is his response to what was the biggest thing he learned about during his involvement with the construction of that site.
The biggest thing I learned was the fact that you need to plan before you start digging. And I think what made and makes U.S. Bank Stadium so special, we spent almost a year in planning. And planning is critical, and that's what I appreciate about the McCaskies is they support the planning process. And so I think that will be really critical from that standpoint. I know we're focused on Arlington Park and that stadium development project. I look forward to leaning in to the stadium development project, but I think the biggest thing we can do is to make sure that we're methodical, we're detailed, and we take the time to plan it properly.
Greg, do you think that there's any possibility at all? Because the Bears still have not purchased this property. They were hoping to get it done by the end of the first quarter, and it sounded like George McCaskey was a little bit hesitant about that. Do you think that there's any opportunity at all for the city of Chicago to jump back in with their Soldier Field proposal, putting a dome on the place and working out some type of agreement with the Chicago Bears?
Not a chance. Not a chance at all. That first of all, it's the smallest stadium in the league, and it would take probably a couple years to do the improvements that they want to do. Where's the team going to play? They're going to go back down to Champaign? Just little things like that. And this is that they're going to own the stadium. They're going to control what goes on in that stadium. They're going to control the events that happen at that stadium. And I guarantee you, and now especially with Kevin Warren on board now, some of the things you can look forward to seeing here, Big Ten basketball and football championships, Super Bowl, NCAA playoff game, maybe even a national championship game. And some of that stuff is just, those are huge events that if they put a cover over Soldier Field, that's just not going to happen. And they've already gone down the road. They've hired the architects. There's a lot of studies that got to be done before they can cross the T's and dot the I's as far as the actual sale, and buying that piece of property. It's not, it's a big purchase. What are they paying? $200 million for that land, $199 million for that land. It's a big undertaking, and they got to make sure everything is right before they sign the final papers. It's going to happen, but it doesn't happen in 2 days. I've been saying all along, I think it's 2028 at the earliest before you see them inside that place.
Yeah. The Reg Johns also mentions having the combine there. You could have the NFL draft there, and of course, these big concerts where you're going to sell 80,000 tickets. Maybe the Rolling Stones are going to be back in town. Who knows? But yeah,
well, you could have the draft, because I think given the first year we had the draft here, and both years the draft was here, I worked downtown doing the draft for the Score. Okay. And the weather was atrocious on Saturday in year 2, and they had to cancel all the activities. The first year, day 1, during the day, I was part of the original Parkins Spiegel show and they were on from late morning into early afternoon, and I did like that whole show with them outside, freezing my ass off. Just a block from where the actual draft was taking place. It was on Radio Row area, and it was cold then, but then it warmed up later that day, and then Friday and Saturday. Saturday was absolutely gorgeous that first year, but I would think if you built that stadium where you could move everything indoors and you wouldn't have to worry about weather. Mm-hmm. You'd have it back in Chicago again. Yeah. And there's not a doubt in my mind that it might be a while, because everybody wants the draft. My own personal opinion on the combine, I don't want to ever see it leave Indy. And the reason being is just the way that city is set up. You never have to, no team personnel has to rent a car, because all the hotels are staying at are all within walking distance of the stadium. Mm-hmm. And you've probably been there. You never have to go outside if you don't want to.
Yeah.
There's all these tunnels and overhead bridges, covered bridges that get you from place A to place B, and the food is terrific. There's a million restaurants down there that you can walk to. And then the convenience of the hospitals being just a couple blocks away, for stuff that they have to, if they have to send players out for some special testing or whatever. Now, what they've done, they used to have to send players all over Indy to get MRIs done. And they were doing, when I was working for the Bears, that number got up to over 600 MRIs at the combine, which means it averages like 2 MRIs per player.
Wow. Okay.
So, but now they've got these portable MRI machines, on the back of a tractor trailer. Mm-hmm. And, they can get a half a dozen or bring a couple of those trailers in and have like a dozen MRI machines or 10 MRI machines right there on site. So that takes care of the one tedious problem that they had. But it's just so convenient and Indy. I know how the league's thinking. They're thinking, let's find a way to make some money on this. But if you went and talked to all the clubs and the personnel people, they don't want to leave Indy at all. Mm. They want to stay there. The weather's, I think, only a couple times does the weather get really bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everything I've heard too, from stuff that I've read and talking to people, everyone agrees with you. The idea of moving it from Indianapolis anywhere else is just ridiculous. So this is Warren talking about what he thought about the Arlington Heights property itself.
Because I'm a stadium nerd, I would say, even when I had heard about the Arlington Park opportunity, I drove out there one day on my own just to kind of look around. Again, I always look at what are the assets on the chessboard, And the unique thing about Arlington, it has some different unique factors. One is the space. You don't get many times to have over 300 acres, close to the city. And so there's some unique aspects. I know our focus will be to making sure that we close on the land. And again, I just want to, like I said early on, be very methodical to make sure that we get that process done first and see what happens next. But it is a very attractive, unique stadium site.
And listening to him, it almost seems like this is a done deal. Now, he didn't say that, but if I'm just sort of getting, the vibe that they are all in on this. Now, because they have not purchased the property yet, as you know, Greg, so it's an escrow. But as part of that agreement, according to Patrick Finley, is they are not allowed to talk to anyone else or negotiate any other deals with the city of Chicago or anyone else.
Right. They can't even talk to Chicago. So, I mean, the mayor of Chicago is basically out of her mind, even thinking about it, because the Bears, first, they're not going to do it. And second, they're not allowed to talk about it. There's nothing they can do. So they're going to, they're not, if she calls, they're not picking up the phone. It's done. But when you look at what they've done already, now this project's already been going on for close to a year. Mm-hmm. And they've done a lot of pre-planning. We've seen some drawings of where they anticipate certain things being. There's not going to be a casino, but there's going to be a sports book there, and there's going to be a hotel or hotels. There's going to be retail. There's going to be a lot of, they're going to have like a village there. And what is it, 326 acres, right? I mean, that's larger than the site of the Rams state. They had bought, what was it, Hollywood Park that the Rams bought, where they built SoFi Stadium. That's larger. I think it's like 30 or 40 acres larger than Hollywood Park as far as the total size of the parcel.
Yeah, it is a beautiful site. And anyone who is visiting here in Chicago, just to take the drive up to Arlington Heights and circle around that property.
Take it right up to Arlington Heights and go over to all those houses. They'll love to take care of it.
Come on over. But if you're going to take a tour of the Arlington House property, you better fill up your gas tank, because it is quite immense. And stop on over. Bring a bottle of bourbon with you. All right. So overall, I mean, one of the things, at least from the portion we were able to witness, is there wasn't a lot of conversation about the Bears roster with Kevin Warren. But I wanted to ask you, and we've talked about this a number of times when you've been asked about Ted Phillips and his involvement with rosters. Do you foresee there being perhaps any change at all in that dynamic between president, CEO, and the general manager of the team, given who this person is, Kevin Warren?
No, because first of all, the president, CEO is the chief business person involved in the franchise, not the chief football person. The chief football person is Ryan Poles. Okay, and Ryan will report to Kevin. Kevin oversees the franchise as a whole. It's his job to make sure everything in the franchise runs smoothly and makes money. And that's the big thing, make money. And Ryan is in charge of the product on the field, along with the head coach. So I don't see, he's probably going to be the first guy to tell you, I'm not a football guy. Now he's an agent, but he's an attorney by trade. But he's always been, once he got out of his agent's role in law practice, he's always been an administrator. Mm-hmm. And he's been, by all accounts, a very effective administrator. Mm-hmm. So, and if you look at his background versus, say, Ted's, Ted was an accountant. And, that's his background, not being the administrator or the kind of administrator that Kevin Warren is. It was before assuming Ted evolved into this job. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, but that's what it was. He kind of grew up. It's basically the only job he's had since he got out of college. You know, he went to work for the accounting firm that was doing all the Bears books and stuff, but he was in charge of that. So he was spending time at the old Hallis Hall, and they hired him away from the accounting firm. So, and it just grew within the organization, where Kevin is a lifetime administrator, and his, I'm not going to say reputation, his experience of dealing on a high level, and especially his last job, the commissioner of the Big Ten, that's the way I look at it, is that's ultra important in putting this franchise at the top. You know, I've said before, when they get this project done, it would not surprise me. You know, right now the Cowboys are so far ahead of everybody else as far as team value that the Bears are going to catch up to them when this project's done.
That is music to my ears. Just as a fan and from a pride standpoint, you know, I've always bemoaned the fact that the Bears were just so far behind other teams from a business aspect. And John Buffone, Doug's nephew and a member of our Barroom Network team, has always said that this operation, the Chicago Bears, have for many years been run like a ma and pa operation, and that was meant for some laughs, but some truth to it. And it looks like it's finally looking like the Bears have turned the corner. Hallis Hall renovation is amazing. Go ahead, Greg.
Well, I was going to tell you how that all took part, and it's not just the Bears within the league. Most franchises in the league were individually owned, ma and pop situations.
Very true.
One person owned it. One person, in most cases, one person doesn't own, especially, you know, coming in now.
Right. Like
the Redskins, it's supposedly Snyder's asking Redskins, Commanders, excuse me. He's asking $7 billion, and supposedly there's not a bid. There's bids over $6 billion, but not at that $7 billion area, and that includes the stadium, which is a dump now anyway, and they're going to have to replace it. But like when I came into the league full time, 1984, the size, if you walked into a team office, the buildings weren't that big. There weren't that many people working there. You didn't have the sales and marketing force that you have now. You might have had one or two people, you know, and well, I could put it in a different way. When I was with the Giants, so after the '86 season, we win the NFC, we go to the Super Bowl. We got availability of a dozen tickets per person, right?
Yeah.
Well, it was 5 years later, we go to the next one. And that dropped down and cut in half. you know, and it's because you got, you know, each team gets an allotment of X amount of tickets, and you got so many people, you know, working for these organizations. Now, these are huge multi-billion-dollar organizations now. And where, you know, you had a chief financial officer, and it was, you know, you weren't doing anywhere near what they're doing now. But the guy who changed this, who took it over the top, was actually Jerry Jones. And we might have brought that up on a show about a year ago or so, but he was way out in front. He's the guy who, you know, actually against the league's wishes, started bringing in sponsorships for his team. I think it started off with Coca-Cola, and then a couple other things. And it's like the team was fine. He had to persuade the owners, hey, you guys are stupid. There's a ton of money out there. They didn't see what was there, how much money was in front of them to make, you know, whether it was they didn't have the business acumen, or they just didn't think of it. They thought about the product on the field, and that was it. But it was his ability, his vision, his ability, his marketing ability that really changed everything for the National Football League. And that's why he's as powerful as he is within the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he probably will have a big role in naming the next commissioner of the National Football League. And I'm not trying to push Roger Goodell out of a job. I just feel like whatever happens in terms of leadership at the NFL, Jerry Jones has a big vote in that. It's just more than
well, they all do, and so does the New England owner.
Mr.
You
Kraft.
know, yeah, Robert Kraft. And I'm going to tell you, it might take a couple of years, but these people that bought the Denver Broncos, they got a few dollars in their pocket now.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
They're gonna climb to the top, I think, pretty quickly within the league. Not necessarily the franchise, but the ownership. These are shrewd people.
Indeed. Indeed. Danger T has an interesting question. He asked, do you believe Ryan Poles will have a shorter leash because it's not Kevin Warren's GM that he picked? You've been involved in numerous organizations where there was changes at the leadership, and everybody starts to get a little nervous. How many changes is he going to bring to the team? Is he going to change the scouting staff? Is he going to change the coaching staff? Is he going to do this, do that? What do you think, what if you were in Ryan Poles' mind right now, what do you think he's thinking?
It's a good question. And go back to when George was talking. All these candidates had an interview with Ryan Poles.
That's right.
It was part of the process.
Yes.
And so it was, he kind of had to sign off on whoever the guy was too. And, Ryan's highly thought of in the league, whether people want to believe it or not, but he's a bright young guy. And I think what I don't want people to think is that he's going to go crazy spending money, even though he's got the money this year. I think he's going to be, and he said it in that presser last week, end of the season presser last week. We're going to spend it wisely. He's not going to go crazy to get one guy because that's what you got to spend to get him. It might piss some people off when they see, they got outbid for this guy and they got $110 million. Well, if you don't think the guy's worth the money, you don't pay it.
Right.
You set a market limit on each player.
Yeah, I am so with you on that. I had an internet debate, social media debate with a fan who said, if you've got the money, why aren't you going to spend it? And my response was, yeah, you got to spend it wisely. You can't just spend money, throw money at DeAndre Hopkins if he becomes available. Because
glad you brought that one up. I think the chances of that happening are about 1%.
0.0 is what I think, but go ahead.
No, first of all, you look at the moves that Ryan Poles made in year one. He got rid of age, and he's bringing in youth. Hopkins is on the wrong side of 30.
Yeah.
And he's already got a contract that he's owed, I think, $34 to $35 million. And he's not the player he was 2 years ago. Why would you bring that in?
Right.
Because he's a big name? Is he you're trying to build this team. It's Hargrave from the Eagles, probably the best 3 technique available, who is a potential free agent. We won't find that out for 2 more months. But he's 30 years old. So are you going to pay him to get him? You're going to have to give him a 5-year contract and probably north of $20 million a year, because he's already making really good money. So that makes him 35 when he's done, 34, 35 years old, to be 30 this next season. And what you're trying to do is build a foundation of this club through youth, so that when Justin Fields hits his prime, these other guys are going to be hitting their prime at the same time. But a guy like Hargrave or a guy like Hopkins, they're gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a great point. That's a
Okay,
great point.
so I just don't, I know the people who have talked to or have worked with Ryan Poles in the past. And so I know how he's been, say, brought up, for lack of a better term, within the league. And, he's going to be conservative. He's going to be wise and conservative. He's not going to go crazy with the money. And don't forget, and people don't think this, let's say they still got $30 million in cap at the end of this year from this year's cap. That flops over into next year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That gives them an extra 30 that the other team, and don't forget, you're going to have to pay Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
And either this year or next year, you're going to have to pay Mooney. You're going to have to pay Jalen Johnson. Probably going to have to pay Claypool. So these guys are all going to cost money. So, and there's some other young guys they're going to come up that you're going to say, hey, we want to keep these guys.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have to pay them. So in my thinking, and I may be way off but I'm just trying to put myself in his position. I'd be probably thinking I want to get 4 big ticket free agents this year.
Okay, that many.
Okay, say 3 to 4, and I don't mean $20 million a year, but north of 10.
Mm-hmm.
A couple, at least 2 defensive linemen, maybe 1 offensive lineman.
4 starters is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. They're going to come in and make it. Hey, the defensive line, you could revamp that whole group.
Yep. I'm in favor.
They didn't play very well.
No, I'm totally in favor of that. And renewable, I got to give credit to renewable, because this is going to be my response the next time I have a conversation with somebody on social media. I'm going to ask the question, do you have bad credit? That's how I'll respond to, yeah, we should spend $50 million on this guy.
Yeah, well, they all go crazy. And that's, keep saying lately is get me T. Higgins, the guy, he's not even a free agent this year.
Right.
It's only his 3rd year. This is only his 3rd year in the league.
Right. Yeah.
Well, why would Cincinnati want to trade him?
Yeah. Definitely appreciate fans whose zeal for making the team better. They throw all sorts of ideas, but there's
I had a couple people get mad at me yesterday. I tuned out. I go, because I keep seeing the name Davenport, defensive end. He's a free agent. And I go, why do so many people want him?
Yeah.
So then, I went back and I looked at it. I knew he hadn't played good this year, but then I went back and looked at final numbers. He was 17th on the Saints in tackles.
Oh my goodness. Where the hell was he?
Okay, but here's the best part. How many sacks do you think he had?
I think he had, last time I looked, which was like 3/4 into the season, he had only 1.
No, he didn't have 1. He had 1/2.
1. Is that what he
for
had?
the whole year. Now,
we're
trying to, everybody's pissing and moaning because the defensive ends on this team aren't getting enough sacks. So you want to spend money to bring in a guy that had a 1/2 sack when everybody you got now is already better than him.
Yeah, that's a great point. A great point. Let's get to some questions here. But first of all, before I get to questions, I wanted to get your thoughts on Dane Brugler, who I know you have been very complimentary about his work, his assessment of candidates. He came out with his new 2.0 mock. And of course, this is just for.
I didn't see it, so I'd like to hear about it here.
Yeah, and again, we know what a mock draft is supposed to do now. It's just to get clicks, to get people to go to a website. I did, and he had the Bears trading their number 1 overall pick to the Indianapolis Colts. And what they traded was, the first round pick for the Colts number 4 number 35, and a 2024 first round pick.
That's
And
funny. I had that in writing last week.
well, he follows you too, right?
No, but I'll tell you what I wrote last week.
Uh-huh.
I wrote, I'm going to one up Dane, and Dane's a great guy.
Yes, he is.
I said trade twice.
Mm-hmm.
Trade to Houston, get Houston's second, which is the 33rd or 34th pick. There's only 31 first round picks. Miami doesn't have a first rounder. Was
Right.
forfeited for tampering or something.
Yes.
And so there's 31 first picks. Houston has the same record as I think as Denver, so they might have to flip flop the pick. So it's either the second or third pick of the second round. Okay, the Bears traded away the first pick of the second round, but regardless, it's a real high second round pick. Now that pick is worth, I don't have the chart in front of me, but it's like 550 or 560 points. Okay, the move to go from number 2 to number 1 is really just a 400-point move. Mm-hmm. So you're getting, in essence, a third-round pick premium to make that, to move. So the Bears get that to move back one spot. And then you turn around, you trade again to the Colts for what Dane had for the 2 and 1 next year. Now you got a high 1, which is number 4, and you're going to get probably the same damn player that you would have taken had you kept number 1. You're going to have 2 of the top 5 picks in the second round, plus the Ravens pick, which is now 53.
Mm-hmm. So that would,
yeah. So I mean, you'd have 1-1, 3 2s, 2 of them very high 2s. Mm-hmm. That, for all intents and purposes, are probably going to be guys you got lined up. Not probably, will be guys you got lined up in your first round. And you could fix a lot of things with that.
You sure can. You sure can. All right, let's tackle some questions. King Pookie Nation asked, do you think the Bears should take a flyer on Aaron Donald, who expressed his frustration with the Rams organization by changing his social media account to say former member of the LA Rams, and about an hour later he changed it back. So, but you think Aaron Donald is in play, or should be?
Well, you'd have to trade for him. He's under contract for a long time. Yeah, he's a special player. But, and the Rams don't have any picks, but I can't see the Rams trading him. He is the franchise.
Right.
And he would be, in this scheme, he would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he would. Danger.
He's great anyway. I mean, regardless. So, yeah, but you probably have to give more than the first pick for him. I mean, this is a future Hall of Fame player.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Danger T says, how many potential free agents are blue chip players? Well, but more importantly, how many do you need on a team to be a Super Bowl contender? We had talked about this when Polian brought it up about a year ago.
Well, it's a very subjective opinion. What I think is a blue, you might think is a red.
Right.
Okay. And let's put it in simple terms. What's a blue? A blue player is a player that you win because of. And a red is a player you win with. Does that make sense?
Total sense.
Okay.
Perfect.
So, and Team A may look at Aldo Gandia as a blue, but Team B may look at you as a red.
Like my wife.
Well, she might say purple, but
That's right.
So it's very, very subjective. I mean, theoretically, you'd like 3-4 blues on each side of the ball, but that's pretty damn hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can get a couple and then a bunch of reds. You don't want less than a red.
Yeah.
In your starting 11 on each side of the ball.
Indeed. Yeah, and the Bears have some distance to get there. Next question from our good buddy CJ Williams. We talked about this earlier about trading Justin Fields, but CJ says, what if you got a Ricky Williams capital for JF1? Do you take it? I mean, Mike Ditka traded all of his draft picks, an entire draft, for Ricky Williams. Would you consider that?
Yeah. And what did that trade end up doing besides killing the Saints?
That's a good answer.
ruin the franchise. So although I don't get it, you've been waiting 100 years for a freaking quarterback, and now, and like I said, I'll go on my deathbed and see it. Next year, there might be a guy better than him, but not in this draft.
Yeah,
that kid from USC is pretty damn good now, and. He might be special. I mean, he might be generational special. But this year, no. Stroud, hey, Justin Fields kicked Michigan's ass and got to the national championship game. Stroud couldn't beat Michigan.
That's troublesome.
Stroud couldn't win a Big Ten championship.
If you can't beat Harbaugh, I don't want you on my team.
Yeah.
That's my
I'll
fault.
tell you what, that's an interesting topic right there. Michigan announces yesterday Harbaugh is going to be back. What the media won't say is nobody in the NFL wants him.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know what he's got on the media. They don't want him.
Yeah, I don't want him.
It's always media speculation.
Yeah. He is an interesting guy to talk about, but I'm totally with you. I think this guy is taboo in the NFL for a couple of different reasons. But
one of the things is he wants total control over everything, and nobody's going to give it to him because he's a nutcase.
Right, exactly. You can't trust this guy. Jake has asked a couple times, so I want to make sure I get this in. He says, do you have any thoughts on what Teddy Bruschi said? Now, this was on last night's Manning cast.
I didn't see it, so I don't know what he said.
Okay, and I didn't see that portion either. I was jumping back and forth. Teddy said that the 2006 AFC Championship between the Patriots and the Colts was the real Super Bowl that year. Do you have anything other than a 2-word response for Teddy Bruschi?
Well, no, you know what? I thought last year the game between Kansas City and Buffalo was the real Super Bowl. And then neither one got to the Super Bowl. I mean, just like, hey, that was that was one of the all-time great football games that, ever played. And Cincinnati ends up beating Kansas City the next week. Well, Kansas City, they shot their wad, for lack of a better term, in that game against Buffalo. That was a great football game.
It was.
And I don't think, as far as excitement and some of that's what Teddy's talking about is how many games have come up to have the drama of that Buffalo Kansas City game last year, right? And any year, not just last year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But I do think that was a side swipe on our 2006 Bears that made it to the Super Bowl. And that, to me, kind of pisses me off. Why can't he phrase that in a way that doesn't seem like a slap in the face to the Chicago Bears organization, the players and coaches?
Yeah, but I don't know. I didn't see it, so I don't know if he meant it as a slap to the Bears because, I was working for the team that year, and we had a pretty damn good football team. But I can see, and he was playing for New England at the time, so he's got his bias, and he's probably not the only person who thought that because New England had a good team, the Colts had a good team, and at that point in the league, the AFC was probably the better conference.
All right, let's talk a couple more questions here. One of them has to do with this trade rumor that I think started with David Kaplan about making a trade with the Colts. That he's heard that they're working on a trade, the Bears and Colts. I knew you were going to do that.
I already said it. I said that is a total fictitious rumor.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said, well, they could have. And then, people were hitting me on Twitter. Well, they could have had the conversation. No, they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, let's take things in order. Colts don't have a coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
First order of business for Chris Ballard and Mr. Irsay is to hire a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you get the coach on board, the coach has got to, it's not just the GM and the scouting staff that has to buy into the player they want to take at number one
Mm-hmm.
to make the trade, but the coach has got to buy into it. And that decision is minimum 2 months away. Minimum. So anything that's said now is nothing but clickbait. Okay, I can take you through the calendar. All-Star games started this week. I think you had the Hula Bowl was over the weekend. That was in Orlando because I think they're building a new stadium out in Honolulu. And the week after next is the East-West and the Senior Bowl. Those are you got the NFLPA game. And then you get into February and everybody has their scouts in before you go to the combine, and you're putting together your preliminary board. Usually teams, not every team, but most teams bring their scouts in December for a week, and you basically eliminate people, but you're not really setting a board.
Mm-hmm.
You're basically you're cutting people. You're getting rid of names that you don't want to deal with in the spring, and you're putting together, okay, going forward, these are the guys we're going to cross-check. These are the guys we want the coaches to look at, etc. They got a preliminary grade on them, but it means nothing. That grade. Then you get, it's a little bit more serious. Every year I've been in meetings like this, they've gone for 2 to 2.5 weeks. You do it by position. So you line up your board by position. Okay, top to bottom, and you talk about it. So when you're doing, let's say, offensive tackles, you stack them. This guy, this guy, this guy is the way we like them. Now you go to the combine, and you're going to get information at the combine that you don't have yet. Verified measurables and medical, and more than that, interviews. So the medical is extremely important. There's going to be some guys that everybody loves that all of a sudden are going to come up with a faulty medical. It happens every year. Okay, and it throws things out of whack. Then you're going to get guys that are going to win a gold medal in the Jim Short Olympics. And the media is going to push them up 3 rounds. That guy just jumped from the 3rd round to the 1st round because he ran a 40 that fast. So everybody's going to run with that for a couple of weeks, and then it's going to fall back to normal. Okay. And you're going to have, you get after the combine, you get all that information from the combine. And what's nice about the combine is that, except for the few that don't work out there, as you're comparing them at the same place, at the same time, on the same surface, on the same day, per position. Everything's equal. It's apples against apples. And so for comparison's sake, it's really easy to say this guy's better than that guy, just in pure athleticism, because that's, what it is. But you're also going to get a feel for the guy as far as, if you interview him. And most of the interviews at the combine are underclassmen. You try to get the seniors at the All-Star games. But why? Because you're going to have 100 guys at the combine that are underclassmen, and you only can interview 60. So the bulk of them end up being underclassmen. That's why you That's why you go to the All-Star games. A lot of times it's not just to watch them play because you've seen them play. It's to get the damn interviews done.
Yeah.
And you have more time. You don't have that locked in 15 minutes at a All-Star game. You can get some extra time and talk to these kids and get to know the guys. So it's very, very important for the team. And then you get into the pro days, and what's even more important is private workouts. Because pro days are always kind of scripted. Now, pro days for quarterbacks are extremely important. Or not pro days, private workouts for quarterbacks are extremely important because you've probably seen a number of pro day quarterback workouts on the NFL Network. They're totally scripted. You don't see an NFL coach running any part of that workout at all. It's done by the quarterback guru who the agent has hired to work with the player. And all the coaches and scouts get to do is sit back and watch. And, you get a lot of oohs and ahs and wows, and the media builds it up. But when you have a private workout that includes interview time, classroom time, installation, seeing how quick he can remember things, taking what you taught him in the classroom out onto the field, when you work them out, it's like a 6-hour day. And it's pretty intense. And one thing where the pro day where the quarterback is scripted and he knows everything he's going to do, he even knows who he's going to throw each pass to because it's already been rehearsed over and over again. He doesn't have a damn idea what's going to happen in a private workout. It's coming in cold off the street and they're nervous. And that's when you find out a lot about the quarterbacks.
Love it.
With the positions, the regular positions, it's a little bit different because you can see a lot of things that they don't have a guru running the workout. The coaches run the workout. So you can see a lot, but it's just the quarterback position is, if I never went to another quarterback pro day, it'd be fine with me and just go to private workouts for the quarterbacks.
Yeah. That's a great insight, Greg. Thanks for sharing that. By the way, we were all hoping that the Chicago Bears coaching staff would coach the East-West Shrine Bowl game, and it's been announced that they are not. And so do you have any insider information as to what happened there?
From what I understand, being I'm on the board for the East-West, is that Ryan respectively declined because this offseason was too important. And he wanted that week they would have been out in Vegas, coaching the kids there, be put to what he feels is more important work, getting ready for free agency and the draft. So that it's a week he didn't want to lose.
Yeah,
and I got to respect that.
Yeah, because it's usually looked at as a positive to have your coaching staff working with those young guys, and it's
and it is, but it's really day 3. Okay. Reality is that it's most because the majority of your first 2 days are underclassmen. Not all of them, obviously, but the majority.
Yeah, and
the underclassmen can't play in an all-star game.
Yeah,
which is things would change if the league let underclassmen play in the all-star games. Boy, those all-star games would blow up.
Yeah,
they'd become, they're important now, but they become ultra important because, again, the interview thing, being able to work with them for a week, that type of thing. Where I would have loved to see the Bears do it, I get why he doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's a way of saying how important he feels this offseason is. And that he, the way he wants to do it it's like, to me, I got too many people out there, because you got to take the whole damn staff out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I got too many people tied up in that and not enough on some of the things that are more important.
That's a solid reasoning. And frankly, I thought that there might be some coaching changes down the line. Do you think that doesn't have anything to do with the decision? Or can we perhaps still see some coaching changes down the line? What's your gut feel on that?
My gut feel is now I don't think – I thought there might be a couple last week, but it hasn't happened. So – no, I don't think. Because I mean, you're going to want. Let me see how to put this the right way. Flus has relationships with some people. Might be some people he wanted last year that he wasn't able to get, and now they're available. Let's say it's a guy who was, this is totally hypothetical. A guy who was with the Colts. And, say on the offensive side of the ball or whatever, and he couldn't get him here last year because the Colts wouldn't let the guy go. Well, that staff's free to do what they want right now.
Right.
And yet he didn't make a change.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there's other staffs that have been let go. And, could there be somebody that he wants it's still coaching, that their team's still in? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he's going to, I'll put it this way. If he's going to make a change, he's got somebody specific in mind. And as of right now, he hasn't been able to get him. And he's not going to lose what he already has for a maybe.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
It totally does. Let's get to a really intriguing question here from Nick Sneed. He says Ballard historically is a traits guy, according to what he's read. Young, the quarterback, is probably around 5'10", maybe under. And so the Colts may not be in play for him, given what Nick knows historically about Ballard's like and dislikes. You know better than anyone on planet Earth about Ballard's likes and dislikes. You want to comment on this one?
Well, Chris likes, we all like traits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But Chris likes football players first. Okay. And character. If they don't have I don't mean personal character. Whenever I talk to character in terms of football, it's football character.
Mm-hmm.
And I know as a month ago who he liked, how he had the quarterbacks himself ranked, but that could change because that's him. And it's never just one person's opinion. You got a bunch of people on your staff looking at the same people. And you can't just say, well, I like them better. You're wrong. I'm right. Don't work that way. You got to be open-minded when you get these meetings. And everybody says that a lot of people are saying he's 5'10". I think he's 6 feet. I just look him standing next to other people. And but what worries me, he's got long arms. You don't see him get passes knocked down at the line of scrimmage. Okay. The guy, at Arizona, Murray, I think he measured 5'10", and I think he was on his tippy toes. I think he's like 5'9" and a half. And Young is way taller than him. Well, the only thing that bothers me about Young is his build. I think he's going to weigh $190, 195. I don't think he's going to be 200. He's pretty athletic though. He's got a wiry build. He's got a very quick release. He's got a very strong arm. He's accurate. He anticipates well. He processes well. How tall he is will play into some people's decision. It's not going to play into everybody's decision. Baker Mayfield was what? I forgot what he measured.
His head measured about this big.
Yeah. Murray's short. Drew Brees was, I think he measured 6 feet. Shit, he's 5'11 and a half, 5'11. Rex Grossman was short. Rex measured an even 6'1", and then at the pro day, teams wanted to measure him again. He goes, "Nope, I did it. I hit 6'1". I'm done." And, so he might not have hit 6'1", quite 6'1". But I watching young play in an elite league, the SEC is the league, and height was not a problem. Okay, and the people he's playing with.
Sorry about it.
What'd you do? Did you end the show quick?
Twitchy finger.
Okay. No, I just don't think height's going to be a problem with him. I really don't. I really like the player. To me, it's more, is he going to be able to take the pounding?
That's the big
because he's not that big. He's not big this way. He's not bulky. But and part of that's going to be, you're going to, when you get them at the combine, you got your strength coaches there, and they're looking at these guys and they're saying, and they're looking at they do a bod pod there. They get the body fat measurements and everything, and they're going to look at it closely. And when they bring them in for a visit, you say, I can easily get 10 pounds on this guy or whatever, and that, so that's yet to be determined information. So, but what I get into is it's really, the coaching staff doesn't get involved until, Senior Bowl and East-West week, when the coaches start going out, and then they start doing tape in March and pro days and shit. And it's when they get involved, and especially at the quarterback position, you get the offensive coordinator and sometimes the head coach or whatever, they fall in love. And that's when things change, especially at quarterback. And so then that's when things will heat up. And I've been saying this all along. I don't think there's a consensus number one quarterback right now today. Will there be in 2 months? Maybe if you want to trade back twice, maybe you hope there isn't, because maybe the Colts number one isn't going to be Houston's number one.
Right.
But they're not necessarily going to know what the other guy wants. Everybody's tries to lie the best they can to keep the other teams out. But it'll be an interesting. We got 3 months before the draft, but I think it's before we know who's really hot. It's going to be the middle of March or the end of March. So a lot of this stuff, like the trades, it's just, remember, it's a lying season. Everything you hear is a lie.
Indeed. Well, and Greg, we've all heard, the term corporate espionage, and, the corporations try to get information about, Burger King wants to know what McDonald's is doing with their new fries formula and blah, blah, blah. Right. Does any of that exist in professional football, where you get a guy in the organization say, hey, I got a friend over with the Eagles who tells me they are really in love with blah, blah, blah. Have you heard stories like that or experienced anything like that?
When I worked for the Giants, Tom Boyster, God rest his soul, was my boss, the director of player personnel. And he goes, when you go out on the road, you got 2 ears, listen. And don't say a fucking word. just listen. But and I've tried to be that way. I don't do much talking when I make school calls or I'm at pro days, but you do listen. But don't forget, unless a decision maker is there, a scout can have an opinion, and I'm not downplaying a scout. But what the scout opinion is versus what the team opinion is could be two different things.
Sure thing. Yeah.
Okay, so the scout could love the guy, but the people above him say, and you're going to get leaks. They're going to put out, the Chargers want so and so. They really don't, but they're going to put that. That's all part of the lying season games.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. Mr. Shorty from Bears Country Productions and a member of the Bear Their Souls show tonight asked, does Stroud announcing his entering the draft help or hurt us?
You know, it helps. I couldn't get this. People say, well, with him coming in the draft, first of all, we'll back up a little. Why would he not enter the draft? Okay, he's going to be one of the first three quarterbacks taken. He's probably going to go in the top 10. Okay, I'm talking worst case scenario here, right? Mm-hmm. So worst case scenario, he's getting a guaranteed contract for a huge, because top 10 picks get totally guaranteed contracts. And last year, I put out on Twitter yesterday, Kayvon Thibodeau for the Giants was the number 5 pick. I go, let's just say Stroud went at number 5. Kayvon Thibodeau's contract was just 4 years, $32 million guaranteed at number 5.
Wow.
This year, number 5 will be a little higher than that,
right?
Because the pool will be bigger. So and the cap's larger, might be $35 million this year. Okay, so and he's got 1 year. The player's got 1 year vested towards getting to that second contract where he's really going to make money. Mm-hmm. Not the 35 or 34 million isn't real money, but we're talking 180 million then if he plays to what the team would draft some hopes he plays to. So why would you not, after 2 pretty good seasons as a starter, not accept that? I said Ohio State would have to come up with an NIL deal of probably north of 15 million for him to even consider staying in school. And I might have been light. In fact, Joe Banner sent me a thing. He goes, I think you're light. It'd probably have to be 20 or more. And you still lose that vested year. You're still, a year away from being a free agent.
Yeah.
Or a potential free agent.
Great point. Dented Fender has a question that I'm interested in. All of these questions are great, but Dented asked, is the size of scouting teams different by team? I would imagine yes.
Yes.
And do you know of any particular team that has like an incredible resources to their scouting team and maybe have?
Well, I can tell you a story. Billy Kuharek, who's not involved in the league anymore, was the GM down in New Orleans. Before that, he was director of player personnel. And I remember we were at a good guy, really good guy. And we were at a school call, and I was getting ready to go somewhere else, and it was like a long way away from where I was, where he had a rental car and had to drive, and he was a decision maker, but he had to watch his budget. He goes, Gabriel, he goes, you guys waste more money in New York than we got in our entire budget. we had an ungodly budget. I mean, we flew first class.
Nice.
All the time. If you're on a plane more than 2 hours total, and that included connections, you flew first class. And, you stayed at top flight places. We got paid good. We had a good per diem, all that. So, and Boister would send us all over the place. I could be in Ohio one week and California the next week.
Mm.
So it's because he had the resources to be able to do that. And we had a large staff too. And we had some part-timers on top of the full-timers. I'm going to say, now when I was here, we had a small staff as compared to some other teams. We had 6 full-time scouts. That's it. And they were all good. If you look, they're all still in the league. And a lot of them were in high-level decision-making. Ballard's the general manager, Rex Hogan's assistant general manager. Sadowski was the Bears director of college scouting, under Pace. Now he's got a senior title with Pittsburgh. Teddy Monaco is the assistant director of scouting for the Rams. They all were very, very good. That's the way Jerry wanted to do it. It's not that we, the Ted or the McCaskies didn't say you got to have a smaller staff, because when Emery came in and replaced Jerry, he had a bigger staff, and Pace had a big staff. But I'm going to say an average road staff now, including you got, I'm getting all over the place here, but like now you've got the GM, you got the assistant GM, you got a director of scouting, and all that. You got a lot of decision makers in the building who are all going out. So you got to include them in the size of your group. I'm going to say you got most clubs except for Cincinnati. They're notoriously small, always have been. 10 to 12 minimum for college.
Wow.
When you look at the entire group.
And Renewable has a question. How has the coaching or scouting department, I should say, what does it look like now compared to before Ryan Poles? Has he made significant changes? Has he added scouts? Has he changed personnel? What do you know?
There's a couple holdovers. And then he brought in a bunch of new guys. I haven't looked at it in detail to really answer that question fairly, but I know at the decision-making role, and that's when I say decision maker, these are the guys who make the final decisions. Like I say, Scout A could have a certain feeling, but he's not the guy who stamps the final grade on the player. That's going to be Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham. And so if you want to find out what's going on in the world, or going on, how you want to know what's going on in their brain versus what's going on one of the area scouts' brain. Not to say that guy's not important, because he's very important, but he's not making the decision on who they're going to take.
Toro wants to know how stressful and the pressure on scouts to deliver, accurate appraisals of the talent.
Well, that you're held accountable to the information you give back. So if you don't give back good information, we let a guy go because, well, put it this way, we did it this way. He was around for one more year, and then another team, and he was under contract for more than that, but another team offered him a job. We said, you better go take it. Because his information on one player that we took high was not good information. So it was like, then you gotta hold the guy accountable to his information, and more. And it's not necessarily the talent; it's the background. You got to be right. We had a saying said, "Look at your job is to know everything about this guy as a person. We don't want any surprises the day after the draft."
And it happens, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, we better, and, we took some risky guys, but we knew about it. Tank Johnson, we knew what the downside was.
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed it. We spent hours discussing that.
Question here regarding that very topic, and I lost it. Let me see if I saved it up here. Darn it. I hate it when I do that. Nonetheless, the scouting departments of each team, what are they doing right now? You mentioned earlier they're assembling their boards and so forth.
Well, that's next month.
That's next month. So tell us what they're
Right
doing.
now, they're all-star games.
Okay. So, by the way, you and I need to do an all-star game or a show from Vegas. So I'm hoping you're available some night or some morning before, right after your morning workout. You're going to be at the hotel working out every morning at 6 a.m.
I'm going to be at the hotel. I assume with the time change, it probably gives me extra sleep because I usually get up at 5 here, and I'm sure as hell not getting up at 3 o'clock their time when we go out there.
I hear you. J2K says, I'm really looking forward to the premium draft content. When will it start and how do I sign up? J2K, all of that information is going to be available later this week. So I'll make sure that all of our fans have access to that. We're just just like Kevin Warren said, we're being very methodical on the process to make sure that we do everything.
I tweeted out, you probably saw the tweet,
Yes.
We're going to have great. So Lester over, because I write for Windy City, he sends me a DM. Don't forget you do stuff here.
Yeah, and I'm really appreciative that you promoted our content. But as soon as you wrote that, I said, I bet you what Lester is going to wonder. What about us? What about us?
No, I just sent him back. Don't worry, and he sent me back a thumbs up. But I didn't explain the premium content, and I should tell him that too.
Yes, indeed. And we always on this show try to remember to promote Greg's articles and all the good work over at WindyCityGridiron.com. So we appreciate their partnership with Greg. Greg, you got a new article out today where you scouted a linebacker. Tell us about that.
No, lineman.
Lineman, excuse me.
Tuli, I don't know how to say his last name. Tuli Lapoto or something from USC. I love him. Love him.
Good.
In fact, I'm going out on a limb here. I'd rather have him because you don't see his name in the first round at all. He's going in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's an interior defensive lineman at 13 and a half sacks.
Mm-hmm.
As strong as an ox, he can run. I think, he's going to tear up the combine. And then when you watch his tape, you just, he's got a nonstop motor. He's got a brother playing in the league. So, because of that, he gets it. His brother plays for the Eagles. He's got a cousin that played in the league. The genes are good. But I'm not so sure. I'd rather trade down a bit and take him than Carter. Interesting. Going out of and why? Because Carter has lapses. Carter's got upside, way off the chart. Right. But he's got lapses in his play. And you can see it. He doesn't, he dominates at times, but he doesn't dominate down after down after down. You watch this guy. He kicks the shit out of people every single play.
Wow.
So, to me, that's the kind of guy I want.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just, that's my own bias.
Do you think that a player like Jalen Carter can be coached up to be more responsible and to play the hits philosophy down in, down out?
Well, you're going to figure that out during the interview process, and they'd probably do it's a guy they're thinking about taking number one. You're probably going to do a private workout with them too. And you're going to spend a lot of time with them, and you're going to come away with a pretty good feel that See, now here, Renewable says edge and DL. People got him listed as an edge. He's not an edge. He's listed at 6'4", 290. He's probably 6'3" and a half. Got long arms, easily 290, but he runs really well. I kind of compared him to Tommy Harris, but he's bigger than Tommy. Tommy was 6'2" and a half with 32-inch arms, short arms. But for an inside guy, you can get away with it. You want the edge guys got to be. But Tuipulotu, he played everywhere along USC's front. He played up, he played down. In their base front, he was a 5 technique. And then when they go into their sub package, he most of the time was lined up outside. Sometimes standing up, sometimes with his hand in the dirt. But he was almost, and when I say outside, he was sometimes on the outside shoulder of a tackle, or over the tackle, but not way out like a 9 technique type. And then there's other times in sub package where he lined up more like a 3.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got that explosive ability, real quick first step, uses his hands really well. He's got a lot of snap in his hips. He's just a bitch to block because he's always going all out. So I just, the more tape I watch, and Danny likes him too. We had our little chat. Danny brought him up. But the more you watch him, the more you just like him. It's like, and to me, he might be the ideal 3 in this draft.
Wow. So Richard asks, how far can the Bears trade back and likely still see this guy available?
Well, where you see guys slotted now by the analysts,
yeah,
and where they're going to be slotted 3 months from now in the middle of April are 2 different things.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I say, I've been doing this a long time. I wouldn't hesitate myself to take that guy in the top 10.
Wow.
Assuming that the measurables are going to be what I think they are.
Right. There's still more process to come. Right.
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 You find, I wouldn't hesitate.
Mm-hmm.
And put it this way. If I was still working there, Jerry was still working there, Jerry wouldn't go to bed at night without me calling him up, and I'd be one. and yeah, and I'd drive him nuts. And but that's what my job was to do. So yeah. I do it.
I love it. We got a lot more of this great talk coming over the next several months, draft talk, and of course the premium content that we'll be announcing all the details very soon. Greg, I got to get out of here. I actually got to start prepping for my 8 p.m. show, so I'm going to leave the audience with your final words. Why don't you sign us off? Any final words before I roll the closing logo?
No, the fun's just starting now. And if you're in the personnel business, the fun starts now. It's a little monotonous going school to school to school. You're looking at players all the time, but now it's when you start to put everything together, and to me, it's when the fun really. The next 3 months for personnel people are a lot of fun.
Outstanding. All right, everybody. We'll see you back here in a couple of weeks, and don't forget. Bare Their Souls is on tonight at 8 p.m. right here in the Barroom Network. Take care, everybody.
See you later.